Fantastic. This is going to be relatively informal. We've got some great folks here, and our focus of discussion today is mining and Yukon's economy, building connected economies and prosperous communities. And we've got a cross-section of folks from a number of the industries that we work with. So I'd like to open with the first question, and Jen, if I can just start with you, and then I'll start with the next person down the line. So the first question really is, or first topic, please, is to give a brief introduction of yourself, your business, and how it interacts with the exploration and mining industry in the territory.
Sure. So I'm Jennifer Byram, and I am from Pelly Construction, which is a family-run business. And I thought it was very interesting when Keith talked about growing up in the Yukon and as a child remembering Faro Mine, and I remember that too because when it was running, we would go to Hawaii every winter, and when it wasn't, we stayed home. So I thought that was funny that he had a connection to the Faro Mine as well. But Pelly Construction, we're connected to the mining industry because we develop mines, build access roads, contract mine, drill blast hall. So we're very connected directly, but we also have other companies like the golf course, Meadow Lakes Golf Course, and you wouldn't think that would be would benefit from the mining industry, and we do because some of our biggest tournaments are related to the mining companies. Victoria Gold's every student every day is one of our biggest tournaments, and for the golf course, we barely make we barely stay in the black, so we appreciate being connected to the mining industry as well.
My name's Josh Clark. I've been with Air North, Yukon's airline, for a number of years now, over a decade. Air North, Yukon's airline, is very connected to the mining sector and other sectors in the Yukon. Any given day, if you take a flight with Air North, you will see a cross-section of sectors represented on the aircraft. Basically, we try to be a supplier. We are a supplier to the industry, to all sectors in the Yukon, government, and so forth. We're also very proud to have our Yukon Spirit in Action program, which is giving back to the community, and a lot of that comes from every one of you in the industry who fly Air North and then afford us the opportunity to then give back to the communities and throughout the Yukon. Thank you.
Thanks, Josh. Rich Thompson, I'm CEO and Chairman of NVD. We are involved in many sectors of the economy. We own hotels in the Yukon. We supply commercial real estate. We build residential luxury condos. We recently completed Normandy Living, which is a assisted living, independent living facility in Whitehorse. So we have a broad range of activities, and we are highly dependent and highly interconnected with the mining industry. It's always been clear to us that the mining use of our hotels, rental of our commercial properties, purchase of our condos, and spending in our restaurants is of huge import to us. During COVID, when you're running hotels and the borders are closed and you lose all of your clients, we were really reminded of how hugely dependent we are on the mining industry, because frankly the mining industry saved us, and we wouldn't have made it through that period of time with no customers unless we were highly supported by many members of the mining industry. So it's never lost on us how interconnected we are with the mining economy.
Thanks, you guys. And thanks for that point, Rich. Like for me, it's been an honor. I too grew up with both of these first folks in the Yukon, and so we've had a lot of time together in a number of different ways, different things we've been involved with at work. Rich, I really got to know well through COVID, and that is really, we all had to, as interconnected as we are, come together and work together to find our path through this. So that's a really good example. Thank you. Which kind of leads into the next question, and Josh, I'll start with you this time, but how can the sectors collaborate and connect and build even better together? Clearly, we're doing a lot of stuff, but we're talking about past, present, and future. What are some ideas you have of ways that we could work more collaboratively and continue to grow what we offer to the territory?
Excellent. I'd probably be remiss to mention there on the first one, we are 49% owned by the Vantuquishan First Nation, and about 1 in 15 Yukoners do hold a stake in Air North, and I think that is very important as well. I think the sectors, they do work well together in some ways. Others, maybe not so much. I think COVID, as Rich pointed out, really shone a light on what each sector can mean through a time of need. COVID really truly hit the airline industry as a whole. Air North was quite decimated. If it wasn't truly for the mining sector, as well as health travel, medical travel, we would not have been able to keep up the frequency and the pricing that we were able to hold. On top of that, we were also, the frequency is great to move people, but it also moves cargo. And, throughout the north, we rely on that cargo, be it, our mail or food into a remote communities such as Old Crow and so forth. And, the frequency did suffer, but the interconnectivity and the interrelationship between the sectors, I think coming out of COVID, we're starting to realize a little bit more on how connected they are. And like I said, with the tourism travelers, basically the tap got turned off, as well as Yukoners weren't traveling. We were unfortunately not able to travel, so we were staying home. So if it wasn't for that interconnectivity of the sectors, I don't think we would have been able to stay in Air North, as well as the connectivity between our southern friends and family, our male and our northern communities.
I think it's a great question. This is the Yukon. It's a small place, and so informally we connect all the time. And in our industry, because we run hotels and restaurants and rent commercial space and so on, we're always interacting with every industry that works here. So informally, you get to know in the Yukon so many different people, and of course we always interact with people in the mining industry. But when I think about it, there isn't the kind of formal interaction that I think could really benefit the entire Yukon. And that became apparent again, Laura Lee, during the COVID pressures when we formed the Business Advisory Committee for the Premier to help provide guidance on what they should be doing. And all industries came together. I was honored to chair that committee, and all the industries came together, and it was interesting to see how much we shared in common in terms of the issues we have. And when we really put all our voices together, we really had a lot of influence. And it's disappointing in a way that we go back from that after we have this pressure cooker that we had to get through. We go back to our silos, and TAIA operates, and the tourism industry is supported, and the Chamber of Mines supports the mining industry, and that's all very important. But I'd sure like to see more formal umbrella business groups coming together where we can support each other the way we did at that time. And I think it would really help the Yukon, drive that kind of growth in the Yukon economy that Keith was talking about. I think we could all benefit each other a lot better if we did it more formally.
Well, I think we're really fortunate to live in such a small jurisdiction where I would feel comfortable calling up just about anyone in any industry and asking for advice or talking about our issues. And I agree that our issues are the same, whether we're in the mining industry or tourism. And I agree with Rich, having something formalized where we can sit down with other industries or other companies and say, talk about what problems we may have or issues we may have, and finding solutions sounds like a great idea.
Yeah, thanks. We had a bit of a pre-discussion about this, just one of those informal off conversations. And Rich, for me, has inspired a lot of that thinking. I certainly, being blessed to be part of that advisory committee and really feeling the togetherness of the community of the Yukon. Everyone literally dropped everything, came together. We had a mission. We needed to get through this safely and survive financially. And those two things are often hard to do in crisis, yet everyone was humble, driven, and it was so powerful. I would agree that we were able to move mountains in very short periods of time, not physically. But it was really empowering, and you're right. Now, we turn to what comes next, and the first thing we did is all run back into our spaces. So that's a very good point. But it also leads into the next question or topic I'd like to talk about, and that's this whole integration of communities beyond the conversation, the Yukon as a whole, how these interconnections connect to what we can give to the communities. And Jen, you pointed out, the golf course is helped by Victoria Gold, which is raising money for every student every day, which is helping students go to school, and the mining industries. It is all so interconnected. So I'd like each of you to, for me, please provide an example of how your business has been able to benefit or provide benefit to the local communities as it pertains to economic benefits that were linked to the mining industries.
Sure, I'll talk about that a little more generally, Larly.
Okay.
I think that the first thing I would observe is one thing that we've seen over the years. We always see it when geoscience is held, but we see it in the mining companies and all the people who, my phone's talking to me. We see it in the mining companies and all the people who serve the mining community, and there's a real generosity that is evident in the sponsorships and the gifts. And I can think right offhand of 4 or 5 different charitable exercises that are out there that are associated with mining companies, like Victoria Gold's Every Student Every Day, where they've taken something and they put a bunch of money into it, and they've got other people to put a bunch of money into it, which is always a good thing to do when you're driving a charity. But they also put their passion into it, and they really make an effort to make that charity work. And there's other examples in the mining community where that's the case, and I think the mining community does a great job of inspiring others to do that. And the Yukon generally is a generous group of people and companies, and we've been pleased to make some major contributions. We think the university is a very important part of the future of the Yukon. There is a lot unique about the Yukon University, and there's a lot that it can achieve for students in the Yukon, the students that come to the Yukon, and training the people who will ultimately be workers in our companies. And I think that we can encourage each other to support these broad types of groups like the university. There are many others where an investment in that today will pay off huge dividends for all of us in the future. And I think we can do probably a better job here too of encouraging each other to be even more generous in supporting our communities. It is a good place for community support and donation, but you can always be better. And I think that I think we can be proud of the record so far.
Yeah, I agree. We've always believed that the Yukon has served us well. Our family came to the Yukon in 1969 in a old station wagon with everything we owned in it, and what we found here is opportunity, and I think this story is prevalent in the Yukon. If you have a dream, you can achieve it here, and with that, I think we have an obligation to give back to the community that has served us so well. And I think there's so many great causes or charities, such as Victoria Gold's Every Student Every Day, but there's others. And I think to have a whole community, we have to give back in many ways, such as the charities, but also giving others opportunities. So if we're in a traditional territory or a local community, we try to find ways to inspire people or give people opportunities to work on our projects as well, so that we're spreading the wealth to those who are around us.
Yeah, absolutely. You both covered it quite nicely. I take what Rich said and look at the people, and it is, Air North has over 350, 400 employees, most of them based here in the Yukon. And as much as Air North gives direct, as much as Pelly gives direct, and NVD and all of you, it's the people that are employed in the Yukon that also then can go forward and be part of the Arctic Winter Games or the Canada Games and giving their time to the NGOs, the food bank, and so forth. So I think it really creates this like kind of almost this giving wash, this economic wash that kind of goes with it. Growing up here in the Yukon, graduating here in the Yukon, it was almost like you wanted to do an exodus once you graduated. And Rich touched on the university. All of you in the room here, from suppliers to exploration to the mining outfits, you're creating jobs and opportunity here in the Yukon that didn't exist necessarily when I was graduated and looking. But now I can tell you, looking at the new generation coming up, and actually just shortly after me, they're staying here in the Yukon. They're coming back. They're creating businesses. So, as much as we're giving, we're also creating opportunity and new employment opportunities, and therefore giving back in the community in many, many different ways. So thank you to all your businesses that donate and continue on, and especially into the northern regions. We see the growth happening up in Old Crow, in Dawson, Mayo, Watson Lake, Hayes Junction. All of these communities are starting to grow and have new construction projects taking place, which are going to create jobs, and then those people will give back to those communities.
Thanks, really great, you guys. I expected nothing less. It's a very integrated group of people in the territory. The private sector contributes in so many ways to the social fabric, and I think you've touched on some of that thus far. In the Yukon, every one of you are major donors of significant fundraising efforts in health, education, community, sport, infrastructure, to name a few. I feel like we're doing a very good job, but to Rich, to your point, there's always room for improvement. So here's kind of an opportunity to pose to you again some ideas as we're moving forward, the theme of our first 50 years in the territory and this transition, and where are we headed? I'd just like to hear some ideas that you're willing to share about ways we can continue to grow and improve that.
Thanks, Lorley. I think that the best thing we can do, we just talked about the community support and charity and so on, and that's really important, always will be, and as I mentioned, there's so many people in this room who are so generous about it, which is great. The thing we can do the best is to, in my view, work in the Yukon. We have this unique opportunity where there is a source of capital, of human resources, and unique thinking that comes from our First Nations partners. And as Josh mentioned, they're owned 50% owned, or 51% or 49% by the Vantakwitchin. We are proudly 48% owned by every single First Nation in the Yukon has some of our units, and 4 or 5 or 6 of our largest investors, top 10 investors, are First Nation trusts. And I think that there is an awesome opportunity to harness the power of the thinking that they have and the funding source that they represent, with a commitment to their own community that is multi-generational, and to come together with them to build things here that make this a better place to work, live, and play. And the biggest thing we think we do, way beyond any donations we make or any commitment to the community, we encourage all of our senior staff to make sure that they're engaged in things outside of NVD that benefit the community. We think that that's a good thing to do. But the thing that we think is the most important for us to contribute is to work in partnership with the people up here, as I've said, and to invest in growing new things, better restaurants, better hotels. We just announced that we are finally going ahead with our Hyatt Place and on Main Street. Better places for people to conduct business, better places for them to recreate in when they're not working. And if we do all of that and do it well, we're creating, we're building on an already thriving community and making it more attractive for everybody. And I think that is our obligation. I think we have to constantly do that and think about our own work as an important part of that contribution to community. And we're certainly going to continue to do that. But you know, people ask me, they say, you know, Rich, you live in Calgary, why do you spend so much time in the Yukon, and why do you invest so much of your time up there? I can't think of a better place to do business. So it's a very attractive place already, but we can make it even better. And I think by the work that we're all doing, we're helping in all of these areas all the time. So that's the way I would answer that question.
Thank you. Jen?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think that the future is the people of the Yukon, and investing in the people. I think we could do better, and I also think that just listening to what the needs are in the communities that we work in, whether the small communities, and understanding how when we come and show up, what we can do to provide benefit to that community. Every community is different, and when we go into the community, we try to listen and see what we can have trickle down into that community, whether it's jobs, training, or a capital asset that will, when we leave, that we will leave the community better than when we showed up.
Yeah, Rich, you touched base on a lot of the key points there. I think from our standpoint, it's that Yukoners and yourselves invest in us, and in return, we're able to then invest. A lot of our goal is to increase frequency. Our goal is to keep fares at a fair price. You know, the vision that Joe Sparling and the Vuntaq-Witchem First Nation had right from the beginning was, you know, obviously connectivity, but airfares were an absorbent amount of money, and it hindered economic development. It hindered the ability to go out and travel, to take your kids to Disneyland, to travel for sport and culture. Visiting friends and family, that was a hike. You drove the Alaska Highway, or you paid a big airfare to take a family of 4 or 5. So the investment that's coming back is part of that cycle of us as large companies and yourselves giving back to the Yukon. And you know, as we continue to grow, we have to be mindful and respectful of the communities that we're going into. We need to absolutely, you know, we've heard a lot of the speakers today with regards to being environmentally conscious and so forth. And, you know, we're an airline. We absolutely take that to heart. And we understand that, you know, investing back into the company and so forth is key to not only the service that we provide in the warm cookie, but we want to make sure that we're part of the conversation going forward. And, you know, coming out of COVID, yeah, hard time, definitely, you know, took a hit there, but we have a vision, we're moving towards it, and, you know, with your investment in us, we're able to invest back into the community, and we appreciate that. Thank you.
Those are some excellent answers. Thanks, you guys. You know, I'm touched as we go through this. Had no idea what the answers were going to be, but really you can see so many so many interconnections, so many great things growing. And I know we're talking about the last 50 years and the next 50 years. Well, I've only been involved in the industry for 25, which seems like forever. But what I've seen for change in the last 25 years leads me to believe that there's great opportunity for the next 50. 25 years ago, we would not be sitting up here with 2 First Nation-owned businesses that are really quite large and doing wonderful things, and so interconnected with the industry. And with any one of those plugs missing, we're not successful, right? So you can't have companies coming through and trying to get people to a mine site who can't fly in, for example, and don't have a hotel to stay in. And well, you can't fly if you don't have airlines that are competitive, and the competitive airlines make costing more effective for the industry. So we're very intertwined. And if we don't have someone to move the rock, we can't mine. And like, we just are so interconnected. So it's really neat to hear that. Yeah, we're all from different aspects of this, and everybody's passion is really about this territory and the people that live in it. That is an entirely different model than was here 25 years ago. And it's exciting in the direction that it's going and in the conversations we're having today. So I have just one last piece, and that is there anything that any of you guys would like to add? And before I go on to that, I want to say too, we probably wouldn't have, maybe we would have, but we have an NHL hockey player that came out of the territory because there's so much transit in and out and that opportunity, and I see sports teams coming and going, and if mining's not supporting it, then one of you guys are, or one of the big companies that's working in, like there's so many generous people in this territory, and we're all doing our best to see Yukoners be successful, and that's like just one of the stories that comes to mind. So is there anything any one of you would like to add at the end of this? We have a bit of time left.
Well, I just think that reflecting back, the territory was built on mining. The road to Skagway, the road to Faro, and all the businesses in between, especially when we weren't so heavily reliant on Ottawa. But yeah, we are, especially our company, built from the mining industry, and just hope that there's the opportunity to continue being prosperous.
For me, Keith Halliday's presentation was quite an eye-opener. The world is changing, and it's changing in every second. We're all going to check our Apple feeds later today and see what is taking place. But the vision and the 2035 vision that Keith kind of laid out is something that we have to take serious. And I think all of us businesses here, like Richie said, invest, continue to build bigger, better, and so forth, and invite people in. We also need to get caught up. I think we're all sitting here as either business owners or people that work for company that go, boy, we're sure lean. We could really use people. We need infrastructure, housing, and so forth in the Yukon. So it's something that is a complete cycle, and all of us have to be rowing the boat in the same direction, including government, all 4 levels of government, especially in the communities with the First Nations, and ourselves as business people that are investing back into the Yukon and the territory. I think this is a great place to invest. I think it's a great place to work with people like yourselves and so forth, and to be part of this panel was appreciated.
I think it's all been said.
Wonderful. I sincerely, you guys, thank you very much, Jen, Josh, and Rich. It's been a pleasure. And I invite you to stay with us for the 50th anniversary of our annual forum welcome reception, where we'll have musical stylings by Carl Schultz. And that wraps up our session for this afternoon.